Bespoke polygon charts, a triangle bar chart, and this is what it looks like. We are going to use our Polygon Mark Type to draw the points required to create these triangles, and we're going to position them and space them out so that you get this cool looking effect. It's not difficult based on the tutorials we've done so far, so let's get into it. Let's start by opening up Tableau. As always, we are going to start off with loading the sample Superstore data source. So let's click on Microsoft Excel, double click the Superstore data source. I want us to drag all this onto the query panel. Once that loads, make sure your data has been loaded correctly. And now click on Sheet 1 to go to our workspace. From here, we are going to apply our data densification tricks. So let's right click on Ship Mode, go to Create, Calculated Field. Let's name this as Path. Here we will say if and only if Ship Mode is equal to first class 1 else 3. This will give us our 3 points to build our triangle. Now right click on Path, go to Create, and we are now going to create our Path Bin object. Let's click on Path Bin. Size of bins, let's put 1. Let's click OK. Now what we need to do is create our index. So let's create a new calculated field. We will call this index. Nice and simple. Let's click OK. Last but not least, I want us to create an initial calculated field called columns. And for now, I just want us to have index in there, nothing else. I want us to take columns and drop this onto the columns itself. Nice and easy so far. I now want us to change the mark type to polygon. Don't worry, nothing's going to show for now, but that's fine. I want us to create a new calculated field called rows. And here we are going to type the following. If index is equal to 2, then 1, else 0, and end. Nice and simple, we have 3 points through our data densification. We're just saying that the middle one will be spiked. So let's bring rows onto the row shelf. Again, we are not seeing anything yet, but that is perfectly fine. Let's take Path Bin. Let's bring that onto the rows. Let's right click, ensure that Show Missing Values is selected. And now let's take this onto the path mark. I want us to now right click on columns, go down to compute using. So we have to set our configuration and now select Path Bin. Almost there. We will do the same with rows. Go to compute using, Path Bin. And it's not the most exciting thing, but now we have our triangle. What I want us to do is take region and drop this onto color. Now, as you can see, we have multiple triangles. So we're doing well so far, but we don't really want the number 1. We want a sales amount, and because we're doing data densification, we want to create a new calculated field. You've probably guessed it, it's TC underscore sales. This will contain Windows sum of cells, close bracket, nice and simple. Now what I want us to do is modify rows. So right click, go to edit. Instead of 1 here, let's just put TC cells. As you can see, it's disappeared, but that's not a problem. It's because TC cells needs configuration as well. But we can do this by right clicking on columns, going to compute using, path bin, rows, the same thing. We didn't actually need to do columns, but had it. And now you can see we have our height depending on the total cells. So that's pretty neat so far. We're actually making good progress. Now what I want to do is shift these along if possible. So what we need to do is assign an index to the region. So I want us to create a new calculated field. Let's call this region index. Let's put TC at the front so we know that it's a table calculation. And we are just going to put the index function, not the calculated field reference, the index function. Let's click OK. Now in columns, I want us to edit this and I want to say index plus TC region index. Let's click OK. Nothing much has happened yet, but what I want us to do now is edit the configuration of the columns table calculation. So right click, go to edit table calculation. Under nested calculations, we want to modify the TC region index. And we want this to be calculated based on region. And voila, here we have it. You can see it's looking pretty good so far. It's getting there, that's for sure. Now, as it stands, it looks pretty good. What I want us to do is start modifying and adding a bit more detail so that we can see it a bit better. But what I want us to do is duplicate rows, so keep your hand on control, or if you are using Apple or iOS, command, drag and drop the rows to the right. And now we have the following. We have a pure duplicate with all the configurations embedded. We don't have to do all the configurations again. Let's set this to entire view. What I want us to do now is actually display the cell's value. But how can we actually do this? We are going to do this by creating an extra calculated field. The main reason is that we don't want to display the value everywhere. We just want to display the value at the peak. So let's call this TC region cells. We are going to say if index is equal to 2, then TC cells end. Nice and simple. Now I want us to, in the second one, I want us to change this to line. We'll see how this works. I want us to now take regional TC region cells and drop this onto label. I want us to right click, go to compute using and select path bin. And as you can see now we have a label here that we can actually use. You can see where we're going with this, I hope. How about we change this to a circle type? This actually still works, which is pretty good. So let's format this label. Let's change the alignment to be on top. Let's increase the size of the circle a little bit, because we are going to dual access this in a moment. But what I want us to do now is the same thing as TC region cells. Let's duplicate this. I want the label as well so I can get rid of the legend. So let's go to edit. Let's change the name to TC region label. And instead of TC cells, because we're dealing with table calculations, window max region, so that the region is accessible. Let's click OK, and we only want the region to appear on the second point. This is point 1, 2, and 3. So let's take the region label and drop that into the label mark. Right click, go to compute using, and path bin. Now this all appears. This is looking pretty much there. What I want us to do now is right click on rows and let's dual axis. Let's right click and ensure that axes are synchronized. This is where the trick comes in. What I want us to do now is for the rows number 2, i.e. the circle, I want us to modify the text by clicking label. And let's move the region above. Let's increase the size of the cells a little bit to say 11. Let's make it Tableau bold. Let's click apply. Oh, nice and simple. What I now want us to do in rows number 2, i.e. the circle, is click on color and take opacity down to 0. There we go. You see it's pretty neat now. For the polygon itself, let's click on color. Let's take it down to, how about 80%? This is pretty nice. We can now remove the legend because you don't need any more. Let's remove the headers. Let's untick them to hide. With the following, let's double click and let's fix this, or let's remove include 0. That's the easiest way. Beautiful. Let's remove the header. Let's adjust the formatting. I'll right click on any part of the canvas, go to format, click on format lines. Let's remove the grid lines, the 0 lines. Let's also remove the column dividers and the row dividers. Let's rename our worksheet as triangle bar chart. And lastly, let's have a little fun. Let's bring order date and drop that onto filters. Let's filter by year. Let's select 2020 for now and click OK. Now I want us to show the filter. I want us to click on the down arrow next to the filter and select single value list. And the last thing I want us to do is to go to format and enable animations. So I'll go to the format, animations. Let's switch them on and let's see them in action. That was a little fast. Let's slow it down slightly. And one last thing that I want to do, I want to add some ordering just for a lot more fun. So let's right click on region. Let's click on sort. We are going to change the sort order by field. And we are just going to set this to be sum of cells. Nice and simple. Now what happens when we change the year? You see there's some animation. Let's slow it down to see if it's even more fun. Now the main thing here is that we took our data source, we built our frame as always by applying our data densification rules. Then once we had our frame in place, we produced several calculations on top of our data set and tried to weave those calculations into our frame to create the effect that we see right here. So I hope you had fun. If you need to, revisit the lesson again. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next lesson.